Welcome back to Hacker Hangouts on a Saturday morning, and we are excited to be jumping into one of an interesting question, which was, what makes a hacker good? And I realize as we seed this question, how utterly ridiculous of a question it is, but how cool it is. Because just to be able to define the simple question, there is, what is a hacker? Which we did spend an entire stream on, so we'll have to lay a quick one down. Made versus are, which is a whole thing John Hammond introduced, and then good versus bad versus memorable. Like all of these things I want to talk about, and I'm excited. So many people, so many things I'm excited about in this world, and one of them is shameless excuse to hang out with all of you people, which make me so much happy. So with that, what makes a hacker good? I'm going to seed the question. I'll open it up for discussion, which is, I think we can bring this conversation a couple different ways. Starting with the word hacker, I only want to spend a few minutes on this one. I think a good definition just for this discussion is a hacker is someone who makes things, breaks things, generally someone you would see at DEF CON or something like that. I know that is a massively general conversation. Maybe cybersecurity related, but I would say in some way we'll say they do cybery things which make or break things. Can we just agree on a simple definition like that?
As long as we include the curiosity in there, because curiosity will go across any other definition that we're going to talk about today as well.
Excellent. Is there anyone in chat who wants to throw out, again, I don't want to touch on this one too long, but just a simple definition. Gulo, do you have any other one to add?
My big one is looking at an object and seeing what it's capable of rather than what it's designed for.
Ooh, that's good.
What can it do versus what was it designed to do?
Okay. We spent an entire stream on this one. So just for the sake of discussion, this one, we'll go with this because I do think there's the risk of if everything is hacking, nothing is hacking. And if you get so specific with cybersecurity exploit development, it just nixes pretty much if you look at DEF CON, 95% of it. So I think that other pieces of this discussion is made versus become, because John Hammond totally twisted something I've heard before, which was it's this term you're bequeathed upon versus it's something you just call yourself. And we talked even about that is, do you call yourself a hacker, in another stream? And I want to touch on that because the end part I think is the most interesting because it comes to what makes good versus bad, whether you're, black hat, white hat, gray hat, whether you're, legally, illegal, things like that. But then the one I really want to hit on is good, memorable. When we were looking at DEF CON, one of the places we saw was the memoriam, in memoriam, all the hackers who had passed away over the 3 decades DEF CON has been going on. What makes a hacker good, memorable? Because what makes certain hackers just abhorred in this our society? Is it because they do illegal things and then we just despise them, or is it because they're involved in community? I want to mention Dan Kaminsky and things like that. What made him so much of a loved person? So let's pause. That was a lot of me talking. Let's talk about hacker being the term bequeathed upon, whether you have it, because I think that's the thing that may blossom this conversation. We talked about what is a hacker. Let's now go say, how do you get the term? When did you start calling yourself a hacker?
So that's something that I think that you can be comfortable with and say that you are a hacker, because we talked about how this is having to do with how you're curious about something, you rip something apart, you're repurposing it. So in my case, that would be absolutely you call yourself a hacker versus you going through and waiting for that to be bequeathed upon you. As in, the difference that I would say is if you're going to become an expert in something, if you're calling yourself an expert versus other people know enough about you that they are calling you an expert in the field, that's something that's more bequeathed, in my opinion. Gulo?
Also, can we have a bequeathing ceremony? I just want to throw that out there.
We need that.
Gulo, what are your thoughts?
Is this baptism in Malort or something?
Malort is, by the way, I've actually tried Malort. I like Malort. I actually think it's an intriguing beverage. One of my favorite images, by the way, from DEF CON is, I don't have it handy, but was the face Dark Tangent made when he had Malort, and it was Cannibal got the picture, and it was just this Right? Oh, it's great.
I need to see this. This is amazing.
Gulo, hacker, made,
So
bequeathed upon.
I've been calling myself a hacker since for freaking it for decades. Ever since I started popping shells and blue boxing and phone freaking and all this other stuff, I've been calling myself a hacker. I gave myself the title of hacker. I also call myself Batman, which I know that I'm not Batman, and I know that would have to be like bequeathed to me by a whole like Gotham City. So, but most people consider me to be a hacker as well, so I'm kind of comfortable with that term still.
Yeah. I think for me, I don't like this idea of bequeathed upon. I think it's this, again, maybe someone else. That's the term which threw in my head. But like John Hammond talked about it, is it's not a term you give yourself, it's something someone gives you. I do think that's just imposter syndrome, because I actually like the one that Gowrie used from another YouTuber who did a guitarist. And he said, the moment you pick up a guitar, you call yourself a guitarist. It's not necessarily something you're moving. You're working on that. And I think you call yourself a hacker when you start learning how to hack. I think so for me, it's not something you're given. It's something you call yourself and you actively pursue it. I want to talk about, though, good, bad. What makes a hacker good? And I know that's such a generic term, but what makes them memorable? What makes them good? What makes it someone who you would want to like learn from? And again, I'll start with skill set. Is it the skills of a hacker? And then even to make this whole conversation, I think, go goofy, is how do you compare, if it is skills, how do you compare skills of someone who's a hardware hacker versus a software hacker? Do skills make you a good hacker?
I think that's such a blanket term. So when you're talking about good hacker versus bad hacker, are you talking about good versus evil, or are you talking about talent versus hack?
Ooh, that's a good twist. Absolutely. Right?
So talk about that a little bit more. Say that one more time. How do I define good?
So are you defining good as in like good versus evil? Like, I'm a good hacker because I secure systems and I don't break the law, or versus a bad hacker who's somebody that goes and lights like nunneries on fire or something? Or are you talking about I have a really good skill set versus I really suck at this one thing?
Let's talk about good hacker, though, because one of the things you said, I'm a good hacker, I secure systems. Like, so how would you go about securing a system? Because I look at what I do. I absolutely can say I secure systems by breaking them. Look at bug bounties, for instance. Like, I don't know if there is any, I would say, I don't know if there's any hacker who's truly 100% will say lawful good. Does that even exist? Like, can you be 100% lawful good?
So this is actually a really good one. I'm a chaos monkey. You talk about how you secure systems by breaking them. I break freaking everything all the time, anywhere. That's my whole spiel. It's what I do. So I secure things by literally finding holes, breaking them, exploiting them, and then turning them in. And quality assurance or testing, whatever you want to call it, I break everything. And generally when I'm breaking things, I do it in the most flamboyant way I can possibly come up with. That way it sticks in everyone's mind and then it becomes more secure. So I'm breaking things for the greater good, but I'm breaking things because I'm evil and it's fun.
But here's the kicker. You just said you're breaking things. Let's use the iPhone, like Louis Rossmann, like for him taking apart an iPhone early day, like jailbreaking. The moment you jailbreak, you're breaking your terms of service. Or like think about the EULAs, things like the moment you reverse engineer software, the moment you load a video game into a debugger, you're doing something illegal. You're now no longer lawful good. Can you actually, does that even exist from an ethical standpoint? Because Braden actually says, yes, good is an ethical statement or quality set. That we do have to define that. My goodness, chat, in no way, anyone who's like listening to this is going to have no idea what I'm talking about, but this app needs to figure out a way of like keeping whether it's a long chat or short chat, all one size. So I might continue struggling with it. So can you actually be fully lawful good as a hacker?
So
Okay.
I say, yes, you can be good, but I don't think it's possible to be good. So you can have all the best intentions, but with all the laws, rules, regulations, EULAs, everything out there, I don't think it's plausible to be good.
Gator,
So
what about you?
I was going to say, we're going to kick off by saying, first off, we're not lawyers. Some of us may have EFF memberships, and I think that's a good call because just in case we decide to get in trouble, we can be able to lean back on that a little bit. So, good, lawful, good. Are we playing a D&D session? Because we need to like roll a D20 to... Whoa! Silk's doing some funky things with his little square. Hey, now he's back. Cool.
Yeah, for whatever reason, it's glitching out on me.
Cool. Yeah, you're back now. So the fact is that there are so many rules on the books at this point. Like, okay, what's the legality of you being able to actually back up your own DVDs at your home? Now, legitimately, I bought my DVDs. I put them onto my Plex. What's the legality of that versus when we're talking about, hey, am I going to go scan somebody else's network that I do or don't have permission? Am I using Amazon services to go through and do that without signing their little piece of paper saying I can pen test? It's really, really, really easy to step on somebody else's toes that will, or if somebody wanted to come after you, could get you in trouble.
So if I said the phrase, I introduced you to someone at DEF CON. I said, "This is a great hacker." What would your mind immediately think of? Like because this is what I'm getting to with this question. If I said, "Hey, this is one of the best hackers I know," what does your mind fill in with what that word "great" means?
Batman.
I was going to say
Batman. He has all the gadgets. He has every single Hack 5 gadget. That makes him great.
Then I'm Batman, damn it. When it comes down to being able to say what a great hacker is, if somebody else is saying that in the community, that means that they highly value your opinion and that you've done something for and or with them. So for me, that the social credit that's worth that is very weighty in my opinion for somebody else's to go through and say that. When it comes to because there are so many different skilled people at DEF CON, when you say it just in general, they're a great hacker, I'm always waiting for the follow-up because there are so many skill sets that if you say Bunny is a great hacker, I know he's going to be a hardware hacker. If you say that when it comes to like, oh, hi there is a great hacker, I know he's probably going to be working with smart contracts of some sort, way, shape, or form. But if you introduced me just saying a great hacker, I'm going to assume positive intent. I'm going to assume that they're helping out the community and get to learn more about them individually.
So one of the things you said is interesting to me. Well, I mean, obviously many things you say is interesting, but one of the things you said is I'd think about their skill set. I'd think about what they're doing. And usually that whole term is, oh, this is a great hacker because yada, yada, yada. Right. Like, because they're a great communicator. They're fun. They're things like that. They're skill set. But you also said they're a great communicator. They're known in the industry. So are great hackers influencers?
Oh, no.
Do we start going
Not
in like
always.
social media aspects? Like if you're out there on YouTube, oh my gosh,
okay.
My time has come, Trebek.
There are many people that are unknown on the YouTubes and other platforms because they're more concerned on their privacy with valid reason. A lot of us went through and didn't go through start YouTube channels and other things because there was a concern of, hey, how can this snap back? We've had issues with multiple, and including just even this week, where there have been major channels who've either been completely turned off, demonetized, no longer able to put things up on YouTube. And this is hurting those InfoSec creators or hackers or whatever else because they're being labeled one way versus another. So are all hackers influencers? Absolutely not. Are some influencers hackers? Yes.
So it sounds like you almost have to, when you have this conversation, is this a great hacker because yada, yada, yada. But that yada, yada, yada can be any number of things.
Oh, yes. In my opinion. Sure.
Gula, what's your thoughts?
I'm an influencer. I'm not influencing on social media because almost nobody follows me. And quite honestly, you have no idea how much I don't post because there's some shiny object that distracts me from something. And it's probably best for the world that shiny objects exist. And squirrels.
Follow him, Gulo OnlyFans. Only Gulo.
Only Gula. I really need to get that website up and running again. But yeah, I don't think you necessarily have to have a qualifier. I think it's pretty standard that you will have a qualifier, but I don't believe it's a requirement. There are really talented people out there that will go out and do something and they don't talk about it. They don't brag about it, but they know that they are a hacker. They know that they're an expert. They know that they're an engineer, whatever it is. And it's not necessarily the goal of me proving myself to you, which makes me a hacker. This is going to sound bad, but I don't necessarily care what most people think because I live my life the way I want to live my life. And as a hacker, people, I think people think that I'm a good hacker. Some might even think that I'm a great hacker. That's what people think, but I'm not doing the things that I'm doing for them so that they believe something. I'm doing things for me to prove to myself that I can do them or that they're super cool and fun, and others around me get inspired, have fun with it, learn something, and grow with it.
I think the other way, which is as I'm thinking about this thing, is John Hammond might have been onto something, but may have said it different than he might have intended, because he said the term hacker is bequeathed upon you, but then he changed his mind. Like again, now because this is, I would like to think this was something to do with my video, because he did respond to that when he put hacker back on his title. So I feel great about that one. But maybe the term good or great, that one, all of a sudden you can't call yourself. Like that's something that you're bequeathed upon. You go through the path of something or another, which brings you to good. Now, something someone brought up in chat, Edwin brought up, is everything in the law actually good? I think we can,
No.
ooh, wow, these things are just like flying across the screen now. I think we can all say absolutely under no circumstances.
No.
Yeah. I will. The law is bad, and I break as many of them as I possibly can outside of statute of limitation. So as far as good and great as a quantifier, as an adjective that goes before the term hacker, yeah, I can see that needs to be bequeathed by the general populace, or at least one or two people that are like, hey, I think this is a good person, bad person, great hacker, bad hacker, whatever. I think the title of hacker you can give to yourself once you begin, and beginning can be just about anything. But a modifier to that, that totally needs to be bequeathed by the industry, by the community, by friends, family, whatever.
Someone brings up a great point, which is Jordan in chat brings up this. I'm gonna pop this back up. Saying a great hacker is like saying a driver is great. If a driver, F1 driver, or is it a limousine driver, it hits me as I've known many people to have said, I am a good driver. And in the back of your mind, you're like, absolutely under no circumstances would I consider you a good driver. So it feels like there's this big subjectivity of whether or not like someone is based on other people's opinions. But I'll counter this with, again, like as you said, good F1 driver, good limousine driver. I'll counter this though. There are universally loved hackers, and I'll use Dan Kaminsky as an example, which I would say anyone who would say, oh, he's not a good hacker, like would probably be slapped across the face pretty much like instantly. So what makes him universally loved? Why do you love Dan Kaminsky?
Dan Kaminsky was the nicest person. He was brilliant. He was crazy. He was fun. He did all kinds of weird things. But you could be sitting at a table. The first time I met Dan, I was just sitting at a table talking to people, and he was walking by, and there must have been some keyword that hit his brain because he didn't even blink. He just grabbed a chair, pulled it out, sat down, and listened for probably 10 or 15 minutes before he's like, hey, did you guys ever think of this? Or have you tried this before? What do you think about this? And then the conversation lasted for hours. He was so impassioned by helping people, by teaching people, by learning things from other people. And the thing, he changed the world. He changed DNS and how DNS functions across the planet. We wouldn't be where we're at this point without Dan Kaminsky sitting there. The dude was freaking brilliant, and he was the kindest. I love Dan Kaminsky, and I miss him so much.
As a question, if he never did anything with DNS, would we still be having this conversation about Dan?
I would still be having this conversation about Dan, because when I met him, it was before he did any of his DNS stuff. And it was him he was a hacker. He sat down and he's like, hey, this is how this thing works. Or did you think about this? And then we would trade ideas back and forth for hours and hours and hours. And it wasn't that was the first time, but it wasn't the only time. And he may not even remember me. I'm like upper middle tier in the hacker community. A lot of people know me, but not so many people know me. And
people know, bro.
I don't think he necessarily recognized me.
Named after me.
I don't think he recognized me. I don't think he knew me or anything. He wouldn't be able to call me out in a crowd other than that tall dude over there. But he would sit down at a table I was having a discussion at, or a project I was working on, or other people were working on, because I sat down. And it was the same interactions over and over and over again. And it wasn't like he was a broken record. It was, he was super interested in this and people were passionate about it. So he would follow the passion. He would sit down and want to be engaged with whoever's doing whatever. And just the best freaking guy ever. I love Dan so much. I miss him.
So I didn't get to have any interactions like Gulo got to have firsthand. But I can say from the interactions within the community is that they seemed positive every single time. There was nothing in question about his integrity or his character, and he was always giving back to the community. And I think that's the big deal, to where I'll venture out to say that he wasn't seeking out fame, fortune. He was literally trying to step in and help. So it's not I'm going to take the glory. I'm here to try to make this thing better. Let me be a sounding board. And I think that makes for somebody who was universally loved, because it wasn't something that he would just shut you down with. Would you say that's accurate?
Now, Dan wasn't perfect by
nobody is, right?
Stretch of the means, because I've literally seen the man on more than one occasion relieve himself in a potted plant at a casino. And it's just, it was Dan. It was Dan. He was such a great guy. He was so fun to be with. But yeah, he did wild and crazy things all the time too.
My interaction was mostly from afar, because it would have been, he passed early when I started going to DEF CON, but he was like the Energizer Bunny. That guy had so much energy. I mean, it'd be like 1 a.m. and I'm like, I'm going to bed. Like, and he's like, woo, what are we doing next? Hacker Jeopardy. Let's do another round. Like, you're like, and it's interesting though, because while we've been doing this conversation I have noticed a couple things. One, you know, his skill set, like, because I even pushed Angulo on you this, which was, if it was before his DNS, you're like, he was already loved before doing the DNS stuff. So his skill set, at least for the general, this is a good hacker. This is what we want. This is what we want to exemplify at DEF CON within the hacker community, had very little to do with his technical skills. He was very technically sound, and having those technical abilities gave him a better way to communicate with more people. He'd communicate in the hardware hacking village. He'd communicate in the DNA. Well, I guess blue team wasn't even a thing at that time. Blue team or red team wasn't even a thing at that time. But because of a technical backing, he had the ability to be able to communicate with all these different people. But it was his ability and willingness to communicate and teach and be one with the community, we'll say, that made him a great hacker. Not his technical skill, though.
So I remember standing in line for a talk, and it was total mob mentality. Everyone was standing in line, and I was like, hey, what's this talk about? And they're like, Dan's giving a talk. And I'm like, who's Dan? I'm horrible with names. I apologize to anyone and everyone that I know. I'm horrible with names. I'm horrible with handles. I will recognize a face, but I will not remember your handle or your name. We could, yeah.
It's
Parents.
hard.
I forget my sister's names. I forget my name. But it wasn't until I actually got in, sat down, he got up on stage, and I'm like, hey, I know that fool. And I instantly knew who he was. And I was like, this is going to be epic. And it was like his first big DNS talk at DEF CON, and everyone was there. And I think it was like DEF CON 16 or something. And it was
my
an
first DEF
amazing
CON.
talk.
It was my
yeah,
first DEF
amazing
CON when I
talk.
think he did the DNS. I think it was 16 was my first DEF CON. It may have been 15, but I'm pretty sure it was 16.
Nice.
Yeah, amazing talk. Everyone was there. Everyone was following it, and I totally didn't know who he was. I didn't know he was famous in the community or anything else. I just knew he was an awesome dude.
Yeah, it's so interesting to me that it really is, from what we've been talking about here. I'll move my camera a little bit here. Again, you think we have all these things prepped. We really don't. There we go. It really is. It's how you interact with the community. And it is weird to me, though, that all of a sudden we're now hitting this thing, which makes a great hacker is someone with the ability to communicate, someone who is outgoing, someone who like will sit down at a table and start interacting with people and being involved in the community. When it's weird to me that those are now the things that we're labeling as a great hacker. Maybe, again, you can have good without that, but that you have to have, again, influencer. I want to say influencer mainly because I know everyone's going to be sickened by me saying that. Influencer is not the term we're going to use, but someone who is involved in the community, like that's what brings you from good to great. Gator?
Ooh, that's an interesting thought process there. And I think where that's a pro is that folks are going through and looking for help. And when other people come along and want to help make something better, they're not just in it for themselves, which is a good thing. And yes, that is an acquired skill set. Yes, that's also a personality thing, because not everybody's ready to go out and be bubbly and say, good morning, everybody, let's get this party started, or up till 3 a.m. partying, going on to the next thing, right? So if you're able to get to the point that I think this actually goes into one of the things that I talk about all the time, which is like volunteering. When it comes to being able to break into the community, when it comes to be able to network, if you're able to go out and do that networking, you're able to volunteer, you're able to help somebody else out, whether it's a conference or another individual, you're creating positive influence and you're having a positive effect on somebody else.
Mm-hmm. Edwin brings up a great point. I'm going to pull this one up on chat and then I will repeat it. Will it actually fly in? Yes. Oh, kind of. Let me get it on up there again. For me, a good hacker is also someone who likes to share his skills. There are those annoying people in IT who want to keep everything to themselves. I think this is huge. I think it's ginormous because this is like one of those things which when we've been building up the team, building up my company, we've been looking at what we call like this CAN team internally, which is a lot of like, we try and treat it like more like a law firm. We have principals, we have practice leads, we have partners, and then we have the group of associates who really want to learn a little bit of everything. We have who are policy and testing, and we want to expose them to a lot because ultimately it's not all testing. You have all these other things. And the thing I always say is like, we have this sickness within hacking, we'll say, where we're like a secret hoarder, where we pull all these secrets in and we're like, it's too super secret. Like, this is what sucked. When I was a kid learning how to do offensive security, this was like freaking the most frustrating thing because there wasn't books you could just pull, like Hack the Box, Try Hack Me. None of these things were a thing. And I'm so happy they are now, because you'd go, all right, how do I identify what services are available on the server? And the answer is like port scanning. But like, it wasn't abundantly clear to go, here is the methodology. OWASP didn't exist at that point to be able to say, here is the methodology to test things. You had to like go on IRC and then find people who could do this. But they were the most annoying people because they would be like, oh, that's super secret. And what you found was this whole idea of like, when you're learning, it was not the right people to learn from. When you're learning any new skill, you start because you're like, I acknowledge I am an idiot at this skill. I don't know what I'm talking about. And then you learn just enough where you're like, oh, I'm quite knowledgeable indeed. I know exactly what I'm talking about. And you're looking back and you realize how much you learned, but you're at that cusp right before the drop off of going, I don't know. I know enough to make it and think I know enough, but not enough to make that realization. Holy crap, this field is freaking ginormous. And there's you go to any aspect of security, go to bug bountying, reverse engineering, web. I have been in like web security, network security, like offensive security forever. I am an idiot child for anyone who specializes in web and only web. Like that's it. Because you can go so deep in every aspect of this. Like Node.js alone is remarkably deep for the vulnerabilities that exist. You go to third-party packages and how to exploit those, how to do this, how to server-side request forgery by HTTP smuggling over this. Like those are considered medium boxes, by the way, on like Hack the Box. None of the I am so getting all the way down on that. But Edwin brought up a point which I think these people need to get over this. Like again, these people, I'm going to say it that way. I'm on a rant now. Is the secret hoarding. You will never, ever be a great hacker if you are a secret hoarder with your knowledge.
Yes!
You can be a good hacker. You will never hit that definition, which we came up to for a great hacker, if you don't share it. Because if you can't explain it and teach it in an easy to understand way without police speak, you're doing it wrong. Police speak is instead of saying like the person walked the person walked across the street. The pedestrian traversed the concrete pathway across in order to get to the other side. Like this big, long explanation, which doesn't make things clearer. That is what will move you from a good hacker to a great hacker, in my opinion. Response.
The ability for you to teach somebody else what you've learned means that you're able to let go of that skill, means that you're skilling somebody else up, means that you're not there and saying that you know it all either, to where here I want to impart this bit of information to you, and I can't tell you how many times it's been the case that if I teach somebody something, they come at it at a different direction and they have new questions that I've never seen before, and we get to experience and find out that together, and you become more knowledgeable because of it. Oh, it's so good. That's why I love participating in Darknet, is because there's so many skill sets that are so much deeper than my knowledge. I'm like, ooh, yeah, that's an interesting way when I wrote that quest, or I didn't touch this one. How did you go about and figure this out? So I could not agree with your definition more.
I love this too, and then I'll send it to Gulo, is being great is also being okay with not knowing, but being willing to learn. I think that's
10,000%.
another skill you get as you go along, is you hit that cusp of, I'm really skipping here. You hit that cusp of, I now know enough. Well, I'm gonna go over to Gulo because it's really distracting. Somehow my camera is doing weird things. But you know enough where you, man, this is really distracting. You know enough where you think you know what you're talking about, but once you hit that point where you know a lot, we'll say, you realize how much you don't know, and you're willing to admit, I have no idea how to do this, but I can figure it out. Gulo?
Yeah, you don't know what you don't know. Passion. I am upside down. Passion is something that I follow. If someone's passionate about something, and I don't care what it is, underwater basket weaving. If you're passionate about underwater basket weaving, I will sit down and learn with you, because I follow passion. And the hacking community is all about passion. I'm not a manager. I am not a teacher. I'm not a lot of things, but I have people that follow me. The Darknet badge this year was hey, I'm going to try this. Let's see how it works. And people got super excited about it. When they got super excited about it, I'd sit down and I'd walk them through it. It wasn't something that I could sit there and be like, okay, this is how you're going to learn to do X, Y, and Z, and then build it up and walk them through it. They had to want to learn. And once they wanted to learn, I was there to lead them. I was there to help them, to teach them, to do whatever it was that they needed to do. Now, a large portion of the badge, a large portion of the quests that I do are because I don't know enough about something and I want to know more. So I teach it. And then I have to learn different perspectives. Like Gator was saying, questions are going to come in that I don't know the answer to. I can't think in that way. I don't know what's happening. So I have to come up with, how do I rotate this object in my mind so that I can describe it better to someone else, and then I learn the subject way more deeper. As far as hoarding information, that's what the large trouts on IRC were for. You start slapping people with large trouts and you're just on your way. And I really do miss large trouts. As a professional, the IT aspect of hoarding information. I don't hoard information because I need job security. Generally, I hoard information because no one really understands what I do. And that's just weird. But my skill set is my job security is the fact that if I were to lose my job or lose my title as a hacker in some space, that I would be able to go and find an equal paying or better job or better group that I could retain that title with my current knowledge. I don't need to hoard information. I do keep things secret for like, which annoys the crap out of me, for like reveals for the darknet or DEF CON or those types of things. But all of my stuff eventually gets out there. I try to open source pretty much everything that I do. And if anyone asks, I'll hand it to them as well. And yes, Silk, you're completely frozen, and that's a really good side shot of you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I don't. Unfortunately, I'll keep you guys up. I'm not entirely sure. Again, this is the risk of doing beta software while we do this. That being said, though, I'm gonna just throw it on Gator's face so we can keep on going. I think Braden brings up a good comment. Sadly, hoarding is often rewarded in corporate. I think this brings you to middle level management. That's what hoarding will get you. Your move from, but you're never moved beyond that. I mean this sincerely. From like when I was at General Electric, this was exactly what happened. Anyone who was hoarding information would get to middle level management and never get beyond that. The moment you got to like that point where like you got really good at sharing information, that's when you could succeed within a larger team.
Yes, I could not agree with that more. And you can do the sharing of information without being a leader, being a mentor, or just being a study buddy on some subject. I can't tell you how many times I was a junior sysadmin when I started out in IT, started working on these Linux boxes that I'd never gone through and touched before. The gentleman who I was supposed to be learning from as part of our lug apparently kicked up his feet at work and never did anything else. Literally didn't administer a box. So sitting down and like taking notes of, hey, here's step 1, 2, 3, 4 of installing a box. Next day, I would watch him install box 1, 2, 3. Well, this is supposed to be the same. And yesterday, according to my notes, this isn't what you did yesterday. Is this because this is a special snowflake? Okay, well, let's keep on learning from this. And what I had learned is that over time, there are people who are going to hoard information because they think it gives them power. And in maybe the previous generations, that may have been true, to where there was such a scarcity of the jobs that they would want to keep that locked in. We have a huge need for more people inside of the hacking community, inside of InfoSec, securing all these different places, whether it's a mom and pop shop from somebody getting popped, or up to corporations as well. We need that skill set from anybody who's interested in to get into the field. So the more that we can share, we can onboard people faster, and we can get the whole mentality for me is that a floating tide raises all boats. If we can make everybody a little bit more knowledgeable on security and privacy, we're able to bring everybody up to where we don't have as easy low-hanging fruit that there's around, which means you're going to have to share what you're doing. Share your playbooks, share how you're going through and building something. And to the point where instead of it taking 3 weeks to deploy a new box, we can get to the point where we're down to a week, down to a day, down to 15 minutes, or even 5 minutes, depending on your needs. So documenting it well enough for a high schooler to be able to come in and be able to copy, be able to go step by step with it and bring it up is super, super helpful. And you're able to then have those conversations.
So just to drop in real quick, if you look at what Gator just said, and you don't have to pay attention to what he actually said, but look at the passion that he had behind it. Look at how he was talking about it and how he was excited about it. And other people are like, hey, I now want to do this. And Gator is infectious at con. He teaches everyone everything. He's such a bubbly personality that sits there and wants to help anyone and everyone with anything. And Silk is the same way. Silk gets super, super excited about something, and he sits down and he wants to show someone how to do this, or here's this puzzle. This is how this works. if you look at a lot of the influencers, Silk's back.
Yes.
A lot of the influencers in the community, it's because they're excited about something. It's because they draw people to them with the raw energy that they're releasing out into the community. And it literally could be about anything. I don't think many of us really care what it is. And it's just have that energy, be there. And that, once you're a hacker, I think that'll make you a great hacker.
I think that would be the place where I want to. I think we can't get better than that. I think what's interesting is we talked about hacking. We said what makes a good hacker. We went from good hacker, you can get the skill set. Skill set, this person is a good hacker because of yada yada yada, and those yada yada yadas are usually because they're really good at picking locks, because they're really good at web security, because they pop shells, they design processors, they have conquered the metaverse, whatever it is. That's a good hacker. A great hacker, though, a great hacker is one who is involved in the community, shares their passion for what they're doing, shares that joy they get on discovering something new and learning it, and then taking joy in seeing other people experience that. With that, my gosh, Gator, I feel like I want to say love your hacker family, but it really is from you. It has to come from you.
So everybody, stay curious and go love your hacker family.
Gulo?
Scarring people for life is educational. There are certain things that people will never forget because of the way that I taught them. Therapy.
With that, be a good hacker, but be a great hacker. Thanks for watching, and hack on.